Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another day here in Bronie's world. And at Bronie's desk today, I have a beautiful, amazing Canadian friend because the US, well, they're having Memorial Day today. So this is the best time to be able to grab my Canadian friend, Jill Hewlett, who is, you may have seen her on my show before. She is the brain fitness expert. But before we go on to Jill, those I'm sure a lot of you are wondering because last week I was sitting here and I'm saying, okay, guys, it's flooding here. And it was just the start of very major, devastating floods here, the highest on record. They beat the record that was held in 1929, which was actually when my dad was born. He was born during those floods in February 1929, and this surpassed it. So there's a massive cleanup here. And to be honest, I honestly thought we'd go under because since we moved back here from Melbourne in 1999, every time it floods, we usually have water lapping at our front and back door. But praise the Lord, our village was spared and it didn't come up. But our town, our major town, Taree, and other parts, Wingham and so forth, have been absolutely devastated, including the shopping centres and everything. The highway was cut. Have been isolated for most of the week, and only really, and most places you still can't get to. So I was not even sure I would even be able to be here today, but praise the Lord, I can. And so I just wanted to give you people an update that might have been wondering, especially those that were here last week and knew that I was watching floodwaters the whole time. But anyway, so Jill, with no further ado, I didn't mean to take your thunder. I'm going to hand it over to you. Now, let me see if I can remember the topic. Actually, I'm going to leave you to introduce the topic because I know it's on anything to do with the brain is good right at the moment because you can imagine how my brain's thinking.
Well, thank you, Bronie. I'm delighted to be invited back to be part of Bronie's world and connect with you and your group. And just goes to show you how dedicated you are to serving and making these broadcasts available because you're going through such unbelievable weather circumstances. And I'm just amazed that you just keep championing along regardless. And so I'm sending my best wishes to you and your community and all who are struggling with these sounds like devastating water effects that are in the cleanup that I'm sure you'll be ongoing for some time. And in the meantime, maybe some of this brain fitness will help with the stress around that because, our brain really does like novelty and change, but not to this degree when it's something.
No, this is
an extremely
novelty and change I didn't want.
This is this is a challenge that you wouldn't ask for. So, our brain, we need to fortify and care for our brain regularly, never mind when we're dealing with exceptional situations and circumstances. So on that note, the topic is about supporting a healthy, active aging brain and busting age myths as well. However, having said that, based on the circumstances and who's tuning in and what you may have going on in your life, you can just see this as also general brain care because brain fitness is about a fit brain, regardless of your age or stage of life. It's for every brain and body, from children, adults to seniors. And when we invest into our brain fitness, we are investing into our overall health, our overall well-being. And of course, this also has an impact on all aspects of life. So I'm going to just go for it, and I've got a bunch of fun things to share. And at the end, if we have time for Q&A, we can do that. But I do have some notes prepared because I just did a recent similar talk, and I don't know, I'm sure the statistics are similar in Australia on the other side of the world there. But in Canada and the US, in North America, there is a real concern around brain cognitive issues, dementias, various forms of dementia, and the numbers increasing at a rapid rate. In fact,
Same.
according to the World Health Organization, they say by 2050, dementia will increase by 30%. So you're probably seeing that in your neck of the woods as well. And a lot of people want to be proactive. And that's another aspect of this. And for those of you who are part of Longevity, you're already walking the talk, because a big part of this is the brain and body fuel that we need to be giving the nutrition we need to be giving our cells so they can do their jobs properly. So before we dig into some information, I think I'm going to take us through a little brain reset, and with some deep breathing. I'm going to take you through I like calling it, BTT 2.0. Well, this is breathing 2.0. So inspired by Doc Wallach. So we're going to do our breathing 2.0. And we'll do this together, but always listen to your body and go at your pace. So if there's a way you want to adjust it so you feel better, always do that, because you're in your own body and you know it best. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take a big inhale through our nose and an exhale through our mouth. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And you're just going to continue to do that. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you some information, and then we're going to tweak it a little bit, okay? So in through the nose, out through the mouth. And what you're doing is you're sending a direct supply of oxygen to your neurons, so you're energizing them. You're also creating a cooling effect, because when we're under stress, we get kind of hot-headed. And so that cooling effect is like air conditioning for your neurons, which is so wonderful. And then when you exhale through your mouth, you're releasing toxins and waste, but also acidity. So you're helping the pH of your body by doing really nice exhales. And when you exhale, you're activating the rest and digest response, which is that parasympathetic response, which is opposite to the sympathetic, which is the stress response. So we're moving into a more calm and relaxed place. So energy in, energized, and calm and relaxed. And it is possible to be energized and calm simultaneously. I feel like we're taught in modern life here, it's either go, 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 like the energized bunny, or flaking out on the couch like a couch potato, like almost like exhausted, just giving it all up. And it's like one or the other, go, 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 or nothing. But the reality is that's not healthy for us. We need that middle road where we've got energy and we're calm and we can take, thoughtful action, responsive action, rather than reactive reactions, right? So keep to it. So then when you do this, by the way, this inhale, I'm going to have you add in 2 pauses, one after your inhale and one after your exhale. So you're bookending your breathing, and which is really wonderful strategy to make your breathing more robust, more full. Okay, and you'll even breathe more slowly and more deeply, probably as a side effect of that, which is also important, also useful. So let's breathe in, pause, exhale, pause. Inhale, pause, exhale. And just continue that at your own speed, because everyone has a different kind of length of inhale and exhale that's comfortable for them. And as you practice doing that, and it's a wonderful strategy. And speaking of our favorite guy, Ben Fuchs, our favorite pharmacist from the US there, he is often talking about slow, deep, rhythmic breathing. Breathing being a wonderful, wonderful health strategy to reduce stress and upregulate our system. So this is another version of how you can do that, okay? So
Yes,
while
he had
you're
me do that on this one day and nearly had me asleep. And he tried
oh,
to do it a second time. I said, no, 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 no. Yeah, and we almost fall asleep.
oh, that's funny. Oh, wow. That's how powerful it can be. That's fantastic. Well, definitely, that was obviously very calming for you. And,
Yes.
when we start to do these activities, sometimes we start to realize how tired our system actually is and
Mm,
how much we need self-care and rejuvenation. And a big part of brain fitness is that self-care uh, implementation that we tend to overlook when our lives are busy and we're focused on other people or other things, go, go, go. We forget to fill our own well. So that's so important. And the word well is in the word wellness and well-being. So it's there for a reason. And we need to use that as a cue, a reminder to fill our own wells. So on that note, I'd like to invite you to keep practicing that. And also another great strategy for brain fitness is hydration. So I've got water in here and I've got water in here. The water in here actually has cherry mints in it, by the way. I'm sipping on my minerals. Well, I just makes the water taste so good. Oftentimes I'm drinking my BTT actually, but tonight I just felt like something a little different. So I've got that. So yeah, keep sipping along, stay hydrated, keep breathing. And just as a quick tip on the hydration front, just reminding you that we are electrical beings. And when it comes down to health, the key word there is electricity. And Ben will say that often as well. And if we can't be electrically efficient or effective unless we're hydro powered. So we need to keep enough water in our system so information can flow freely from our sensory system through our nervous system to our brain. Our brain then can chew on the information, do what it needs to do with it, store it for later, let it go, or respond with it. So if we're going along dehydrated, our system cannot communicate properly. And on top of it, our brain actually shrinks in size when we are dehydrated. And that is a scary thing because we in brain fitness, I've got this expandable sphere. We want to grow our brain. We don't want to shrink it. So we're all doing all the things to create healthy neurons and neural connections and build a healthy brain map. So dehydration kind of takes away from that. So you want to stay nicely hydrated. There's an interesting fact here that there's been cases where people have thought, elderly folks have thought they were dealing with dementia and they were concerned. So they go to the doctor and it turns out they didn't have dementia, they were dehydrated.
mm,
And it's not surprising because as people age, their brain, there's hydration sensors become desensitized. So they're not as sensitive as they used to be. So people are literally forgetting to drink water because their body isn't reminding them. They're not feeling thirst the same way. So now you can't even rely on that feeling. Plus, I'm sure you've heard, you don't wait till you're thirsty to drink water. You don't let yourself get to that point anyway. But at least if you do feel thirsty, you realize, oh, I realize now I need to do that. So then you all of a sudden you then invest into a water bottle that you can carry around with you, maybe one that actually even has the measurements on the side. And so you've
mm,
got that visual cue and it's nice and handy. And then you are going to, ensure you're going to, and having a bunch of water first thing in the morning isn't to take away from water you'd have throughout the rest of the day, but it does create a bit of a buffer if you do forget or you're dealing with extra stress. Because depending on what we eat, our stress levels, the environment we're in, we may get more dehydrated faster. So right there, two great brain tips for you to, take with you and implement or share with your friends, family, your clients. So people might be wondering, what is brain fitness? And Bronie, you've heard a bit about it, but I always like to start a talk this way because for people who haven't heard me before or new folks who are going to be watching this recording, or even if you have heard before, so we have so much information coming at us, right? What's that? The acronym TMI, too much information. So these reminders are really helpful, and repetition is good for the brain. Sometimes we can get bored with repetition. I get it. And if we're repeating the same habit that's not healthy for us, well, then that's not good at all, because now you're becoming faster and better at a bad habit. And because it's what happens is myelin gets laid down on our axons, these connections between neurons, and it's a protein type lubricant. And what it does is it helps signaling to happen faster. And so it kind of strengthens that pathway. And it does not discern between a good habit and a bad habit. It would be ideal if myelin would only myelinate the good things we did. It would be fantastic, because then only good habits would become habits. Only good things would become, or good actions would become habits. But what happens is negative habits get myelinated as well. And so we end up, and our brain loves to save energy. And so it's an energy hog, and it's energy efficient. So anything it can do to take a shortcut, it's going to do, even if it means, hey, doing a bad habit. That's why creating a new habit is harder, because first of all, we have to repeat it lots of times for that myelination to kick in, for it to become like secondary. And then the other part of it is the energy it takes to do that. And our brain is often saying, well, I'd like to put that energy into something fun, or relax, or just, save it for a rainy day, not, work hard every day to create healthy habits. But as you'll all see, I'm sure in your own life, eventually things that you're healthy things you do, they do become habits, and you start to do them as second nature, and it doesn't become a struggle anymore. So that just goes to show the power of neuroplasticity and what's possible for us. So that leads me to, when it comes to what brain fitness is, the very first thing is the awareness that we can change our brain, and that we can leverage this superpower called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity, the word plastic is in the word plasticity. Your brain is not made of plastic, but it is plasticine-like. It's malleable, changeable, modifiable. Neuroplasticity. And it's wonderful because we have access to neuroplasticity all our lifespan. It used to be believed that that was only something for young people, or up to, say, your 20s or late 20s or middle, adulthood. But no, as long as you're here on the planet, you can create new neurons and neural pathways, which is neuroplasticity. It's the ability to change your brain. And so having this awareness that this is possible is the first step in brain fitness, because that can be a game changer for so many people who were led to believe that their brain is like stuck. It's set. It's like set in stone. It's like, and that's the old science. Science decades ago believed that you couldn't change your brain, your IQ, your behavior. If you had an injury or trauma, like it was kind of like little, you can only do so much. You can only maybe do a little bit to make a change. Turns out now you can actually fully transform and heal things that before were believed to be impossible to change. So that's why the field of neuroscience not only is given us so much hope and inspiration, it's actually created a new language. Like the word neuroplasticity didn't exist before, because who knew the brain was plastic? Plasticine-like. So just to
don't want any
clarify,
plastic.
I don't want anyone linking, that's Jill Hewlett told me my brain is made of plastic, So just to clarify. So you got the awareness, and then what you do is you go into then the user-friendly neuroscience. And I always like to say user-friendly before I say neuroscience, because people can get concerned and be like, oh, science, I wasn't good in science in school, or, oh, I'm too, I'm busy to learn science. No, this is user-friendly. It's very accessible. It's applicable to your daily life. In fact, it's called applied neuroscience as well. It's taking neuroscience and making it applicable, translated to our everyday lives. And Yeah, and that's key to this, because we want to know that what we're doing is proven, is research based. It's been studied. I'm not just pulling this out of thin air up here off a maple tree in Canada, as I
Oh, you
tap
can
from
get good
maple
things off a
syrup.
maple tree.
Could be good, still could be good, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's valid stuff. And what's so cool is it's what's, bringing a lot of opportunity for people, because Dr. Wallach talks about epigenetics, how we can affect our genes. And I think that is one of the other superpowers, because we can affect how the cell's health and how the cells are functioning, not just our neurons, which are so important. We have like a lot of neurons. We have 50 to 100 trillion cells, and we have to take care of those. And so epigenetics and nutrition and essential nutrients, supplementing properly and regularly, all that is a wonderful way, one of the main wonderful ways to tap into epigenetics. And then, of course, that leads to the neuroplasticity part, the actually creating the new cells and the new neural connections, so that we can think, feel, act, behave better, differently, more effectively. So then we go into the brain fitness activities or strategies. So we've got the awareness, the user-friendly, neuroscience that proves it, and then we've got the strategies that we implement. And we already did two simple ones, breathing 2.0, and talked a little bit about the importance of being hydrated. There's dozens and dozens. In fact, because each activity has so many variations, there's really hundreds of different brain fitness strategies. Depending on the group I'm working with and what our goal is, I will customize my talk, and then we'll focus on different types of strategies, so that person can actually leave knowing how they can sculpt their brain. So that leads us to the next thing about what it supports. And I want us to just think of a pyramid for a moment. There's the brain health, the general brain care, the care of your brain cells, your nervous system, your cognition, all this, like at a base level, right? And it's to slow down any degeneration or decline. It's to prevent degeneration, decline. It's to work with the next level up would be the mental health. So we're looking at building resiliency, a growth mindset, working on mental clarity, a sense of resourcefulness, living with purpose and meaning. So we go up from the health side to the intentional side of that, the mental side, and then that connects to our emotional health as well, activating those happy neurochemicals, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, so that we can improve our mood, our attitude, our motivation. And then ultimately, the top of the pyramid are the executive functions. So we are being able to make better choices, problem solve more effectively, be more creative and innovative, set goals and move towards them. So you can see, as you go up the pyramid, you're kind of optimizing your abilities and your potential. But it all, of course, starts at the base, which is the brain health, because you're not going to optimize your executive functions if you're struggling with serious health conditions. So our system always prioritizes from the base up as well. So ultimately, I mentioned earlier that all people can benefit from brain fitness, right? The developing brain as kids, the adult brain for stress reduction, for change management, for being more productive and efficient, and work-life balance, and all those good things that are often talked about in the workplace too, where people are spending a lot of their time. And then last but not least, there is the health and wellness sector, which includes individuals who want to improve their functioning, want to prevent decline, who want to learn and grow and be the best they can be. And in that category, we have healthy active aging. and the seniors who want to invest into their brain care. And so that's kind of the spectrum of the demographics that I work with. Why in particular this is important for the aging brain, and that's the focus I wanted to take today, and then I wanted to discuss some age myths, is that the aging brain, you know this saying, but if you don't use it, you lose it. And the reality is, right, as people age, they might start to well, if they retire from work, that right there is a change. They might find that unless they pick up some hobbies and start to volunteer at local, community group or church or whatnot, unless they're choosing to be active, they might be having more time on their hands. Now, some people retire and they go traveling. They get very involved with their grandkids. They again take up a hobby or volunteer. But there are a lot of people who in fact, research shows that people's health decline, there's a marked point when people retire that there is a higher number of people dealing with health concerns after retirement. And it's almost because they slow down. They don't have the same motivation. Maybe they're not engaging their brain the same way. Maybe they're not just caring for themselves the same way. So the whole point is if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's really key for all ages and stages because the developing brain needs to fire it and wire it as well. But as we age, to remember that. And also, it's just natural, the system may start to slow down. So it takes energy to make energy. So while it might be a little bit harder to get our energized, the payoff is there because when you intentionally invest into things that are going to elevate your energy, like for example, a walk in fresh air in the sun, that's going to energize you. But you might, before you go out for that walk, you might feel like, oh, I don't really want to go out. I got to put my shoes on. I got to get up from the couch. I've got to, but then if you get over that hump, that almost resistance, you go out for the walk, it's like, why didn't I do this sooner? I feel so much better. It takes energy to make energy, right? And so as we're slowing down, we need to be even more intentional about that. And especially so that we can keep that electricity activated, the blood flow, circulation of oxygen and nutrients, all that is really important so we can feed and fuel our system properly. And then last but not least, we also have childhood reflexes that normally they're active, they're automatic involuntary movements that are active usually in the first few months of life. In ideal circumstances, they become integrated and they are no longer like active in the system. But what happens is life happens and they don't always get fully integrated. And so we learn how to compensate with these internal reflexes that have not disappeared. And usually what happens is we compensate quite well in our young childhood and adulthood, our teens or adulthood. But when we become seniors or in the aging, we go into the aging stage of life, those primitive reflexes can reemerge. And so it's a whole field of work. I won't spend much more time on that, but I do recommend people looking at it. I feel like you've got some really great people in Australia who work with primitive reflexes, actually. And it's amazing because when people start to address that, and integrative movement is very helpful for that, then a person finds themselves being more calm, more relaxed. Their brain isn't as overactive. They have less worry. There's a feeling of settledness that comes from that. And so while I'm not a specialist in this area, I am trained in something called brain gym and educational kinesiology. And there's certain activities and repatterning techniques that are done that are also very helpful for dealing with primitive reflexes. They're very complementary to that field. So as you can see, there's lots of reasons why a person would want to care for their brain at every age and stage of life, but especially as we're going into the aging stage, so we can have that healthy, active living. And when we do care for our brain, you know what happens? We we develop something called our cognitive reserve. And that is like the best way to describe it, it's a brain cushion. And what in fact it is it's synaptic density. It's the density of your synapses, your neural connections. And what you want to do is create a lush environment, a thick, healthy environment. And what happens is, well, neuroscientists have some really great two images to show. An image that is a struggling cognitive reserve, one that is kind of weak, dissolving, not much happening, is like a desert island that's lacking in growth, lacking in activity, compared to another image which represents a really thick and lush cognitive reserve, which is like a jungle, a rainforest, an overgrowing garden. And so you've got like these two images where you can see something that's very sparse and, empty or not much happening, compared to something that is really lush and fortified, which is representative of the synaptic density that I referred to. And that's where you create that brain cushion. And so what happens is it's doing things, and movement is a wonderful way. Again, I like to even just refer to the fact if you go walking 20 minutes a day, research says you will, in fact, actually, I'm going to share with you some really, I'm going to keep going with the cognitive reserve, but I did have something that I think is so key as far as research. Okay, so a study was published in JAMA Neurology, and they found that walking around 9,000 to about 9 to 10,000 steps per day, so it's about 5 miles, was associated with a 50% lower risk of developing dementia. Is that not amazing?
Yes, it's amazing.
Wow. So that's like if you walk 5 miles a day, now maybe that's a big ask, but what about every other day? Do it as often as possible or a few times a week. Because even walking, so another part of this research was that even walking about 3,800 to 4,000 steps per day, so maybe 2 miles, so less than half of the other number, was associated with a 25% reduced risk of developing dementia.
Wow.
So yes, so exciting. So going out and walking, when you're walking and doing all that cross-lateral motion, and we can do some right now sitting at our desk, just even opposite hand to opposite leg. I invite you to energize your brain with some movement here. And you're bringing one hand across to your opposite leg and then switching over to the other side and turning your upper body as you do this. And you're getting blood and flow and energy flow and circulation through your spine. You're moving that cerebral spinal fluid. And breathing when you do this, and with a head turn as well, so you're giving your eyes a screen break. All these great
Well, that's
things.
a good idea.
Yeah, right. And it's going to wake you up too, and getting your system working, to your left and right brain hemispheres working as a team again. So all that, like, look at that, just a quick little activity, and activities like that will build synaptic density when they're done regularly. And so when we have this stronger brain cushion, what we can do is we can ward off degeneration. We can maintain brain health longer as we age. We can also, our brain can find alternate ways to doing things. Because you know how sometimes we have a plan and it doesn't go as we wanted? Has that ever happened to you?
All the time. All the time.
Well, welcome to the club, right? And so plan B is easier when we have we have a brain cushion, because we have more neural pathway options. Because it's hard to take a path that's in life that's not already programmed here, believe it or not. Because we may not think of it, and it's like, because we're not familiar with it, or we never considered that idea. But the more that we create options and experience, and by the way, our brain is just experience dependent. And I wrote about that in my newsletter that went out yesterday, is that if anything we can do is activate our brain with a wealth of experiences, trying new foods, talking to different people, listening to different music, doing different types of movement. All these things will grow your brain map and your synaptic density, and will give your brain more options when it comes to times when you're stressed, or you have to figure something out, or you need to come up with a plan B or plan C, who knows, right? What might be going on that's requiring us to be adaptable, to be resilient, and to be resourceful. So those are examples. And also, if we're exposed to some high levels of stress or toxicity, or maybe have surgery or something like that, again, a stronger brain cushion and brain map will help us get through that more easily, more quickly. So there's no reason to not invest in this, and that's a big part of brain fitness. On my website, actually, and you may put the link in the comments, but my website, jillhewlett.com, I've got a blog. I've got various blogs, and one in particular that talks about the cognitive reserve is called Your Greatest Wealth. And so you might be interested in that. But jillhewlett.com. I also have my free brain guide there that you can download at the top. And I also have access to my weekly Brain and Life Reset installment. So as I just going to be wrapping up soon, I just want to spend like a good 5 minutes or so talking about brain. It's Hewlett with an L there. Hewlett. But good stuff.
Oh,
I think you're wrong.
I was looking at your name there and still got L.
The L is close to the I though, so I totally get that.
Okay, I'll type it again.
Okay, this is a good chance for me to have a sip of water. So what I wanted to talk about, though, because a part of our description of this session, you got it. Part of our description of the session was about busting age myths. And that is so key because there are a lot of things that people believe that just aren't true. And they've kind of been, accepted by society, and they're not serving people. And I'll just give you some examples. So the idea that that a senior or an aging brain is stuck and unable to change. Well, right from the beginning, I talked about neuroplasticity, and that's available to us lifelong. So it's not just a certain time period where we can change our brain. Even our 70s, 80s, 90s even, people can learn new things, experience new places, make new friends. I know people, starting new relationships in their 80s. I'm a good friend of my mom. A friend of my mom's just had her 90th birthday on the weekend, and this woman planned her own party, and then she did a comedy skit talking about the various decades of her life, looking back and, seeing the humor and the life lessons in it. Like, how cool is that?
That's so awesome.
It's amazing, but we're not like taught this. We're like because there are a lot of people in their later years who are bedridden, who are sick, who are not healthy, and they're just being kept alive because of, at the bare minimum, with medical intervention, but it's not a quality of life. But we know, thanks to places around the world, blue zones. Doc Wallach talks about these blue zones. I have a blog about blue zones as well, where they have high numbers of centenarians, people who live to be over 100, and they have very healthy lives. And that is possible. So they're role models and testimonies to this being possible. The question is, what are they doing differently? Well, they are getting more movement. They're spending more time outside. They're not on tech as much. They're eating healthier. They're living in environments with mineral-rich soils. That's why we've got to take our minerals, right? So we're not stuck. We can change, but we need to give ourselves the right lifestyle, daily habits, and strategies to allow for that to happen. Another myth is that sleep is not necessary as you age because, hey, you're not doing as much, so you don't need to sleep as much. That's not true. Sleep is so important for healing, for consolidation of memories. There's all sorts of cleaning going on in the brain. So sleep is a health strategy, and it's a very, very important one. And I know with Longevity, they have a wonderful sleep programs and products. So those gummies, which we can't get in Canada, I wish we could.
We can't get them here either.
Oh, what is going on with the Commonwealth? I mean, it's just unreal. Gosh, but there are other products that we can have, and just what, there's so many things that are useful to create good sleep hygiene. Simply getting to bed earlier, turning off the lights, taking a tech break, making it darker in the room, making it cooler in the room. There's things that we may have some control over. Another myth is that we should be less active as we age. Well, I'm sure if you've been listening to my talk this whole time, you'll know that that's not true. It's a no-brainer that you have to get movement. Movement activates the brain, it sculpts the brain. Regular, frequent, various types of movement, intentional movement is absolutely essential for the brain. If you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't move it, you lose it. So there you go. And then there's this whole idea that the memory will decline. That's not actually a given either. Like, that's not necessarily going to happen. And there are things you can do to help improve your memory. And there's nutrition that's involved in that. And again, movement is involved and sleep is involved in memory, as well as just practicing and training our memory. And the younger brains tend to be faster at processing, but older brains have more scaffolding. And over time, that creates a lot of life experience wisdom. So older brains actually have access to a whole treasure trove of information and wisdom that we're denying them if we just say, oh, you're inevitably going to lose your memory. You're going to lose your marbles. Well, that's setting a person up for that destiny because they're thinking that's going to happen, so they're going to live into it. It's just so crazy that we set people up for these types of beliefs. And by the way, Becca Levy, who is a really well-known aging expert, she has proven through her research that we can add 7.5 years to our life simply by having a positive mentality around aging. So right away, if a person wants to add years to their life and also quality years to their life, then start to question things that don't feel right, that aren't empowering, that don't serve you. Because likely they're not true anyway if they're bringing you down, because so much more is possible than we've been told. And my mother, who's an octogenarian, and her health was turned around in her late 50s, thanks to Doc Wallach. That's a story I'll share for another time, Bronwyn. Let's remind me to share that one, because I know I shared my dad's story last time. I'll save her story for next time. And it's just an incredible story of turning her life around, her health around, therefore her life around, and the power of epigenetics and neuroplasticity. And now in her 80s, she's a super ager, and she's not on any medications or drugs. But meanwhile, in her late 50s, the doctor said she had to be on painkillers, and she was in the early stages of rheumatoid arthritis. Well, there you go. Look at the change that is possible, and she's a fabulous example of it. So as we wrap up, I would like to leave with a quote that is inspired by something that David Bowie said. And so I've made it my own because I've brought my own twist to it. And basically the concept is, it's something to meditate on. It's something to breathe into, to kind of just percolate in. And it's the concept that aging is a process of becoming the person you are meant to be. And I just think that's just a beautiful way to look at the depth, the breadth, the expansion, the growth, the wisdom that is possible for us as we age. So if we bust those age myths, we engage in healthy habits and lifestyle practices, including getting quality sleep, deep breathing, getting movement, going out there and connecting with people and being social, and taking our 90 essential nutrients, the mighty 90, and all the other things, and taking out the bad foods and putting in the good foods, we can elevate our lives and accomplish so much more. And what's possible is just so exciting. So thank you so much, everyone. As a last brain fitness activity, I'm going to share an all-over body massage so we can wrap this up in a really energized and calm state. I'm going to have you give me the peace fingers. So soon we're going to say peace out, right? And then you're going to take these fingers and bring them to one in the front of your ear, the other one at the back. And you're going to just, first of all, just rub up and down. This is the first, there's 3 steps to this movement. If you do it, you're going to feel great, but always listen to your body and modify according to your comfort and needs, please. So that's the first thing. And you may find yourself breathing more deeply when you do this. Then you can pull your ear out in all directions. Just pull it out. Go around earrings if you're wearing them. And last but not least, you're going to massage and roll your ear. Oh my gosh, how good does that feel? Babies love this, pets love this, your partner may enjoy it. Ask their permission first, of course, if you do it for them. And there you go. And just notice that if your ears are changing color or feeling warmer, that's circulation. That's great. That's activation. In your ear, there are over 400 acupressure points. So what we just did was activated over 400 pressure points associated to organs and tissue systems in our body. So we've just done a really great body mind activity, and I hope that you enjoyed it and that you're feeling great.
Oh, we did enjoy that. I'm sure if I asked for hands up, I'd get a hands up from everyone. If you've got time, Michael has a question in the comments. I'm not sure if you can see that. I'm not sure if you can. Michael, are you able to unmute? Did you want to ask?
You know what? I think I'm going to leave that I'm going to leave that question there for pharmacist Ben, because that is more his wheelhouse than mine. And I do need to scoot now because of our timing is after 10. But when we're getting into very specific health things like that, that's a whole conversation, especially when you're talking about keto diet and healing, brain healing and injury from that, and the nutrition that will support it. Ben is a great one. And Doc Wallach, by the way. I think I would even try to get right to him for that question, possible. Okay, thank you so
that
much.
sounds good. Well, Michael, we'll hang on to that question for Ben next week. But thank you, Jill, for coming here and being with us today. We have totally enjoyed it.
You're welcome.
Anyway, and so as I ask everyone nicely here in Bronie's world to stay safe, stay informed, be empowered, but do not live in fear, my friends. And let's age healthily by doing these brain exercises. And they're not hard to do. They're not hard at all. So have some fun with it. And then when you do that, you too will be powerful, beautiful, brilliant, and most definitely very brave. God bless you all. And thank you, Jill, for coming. And thank you all for coming and sharing with us as well. And we'll catch you again next week here in Bronie's World. Actually, will be tomorrow, but I come on every day. God bless. Bye.
Bye.